All right. Here we are. We're live, Eric. Thanks so much for coming. Really happy to hang out.
You bet, man. This is awesome. Thanks for
Cool.
having me.
Yeah, of course. I was really excited to talk to you. You've taught me a lot over the years around, content creation, personal brand, finding your voice. Before we get into some of your thoughts on that, we'd love to just kind of give us your background a little bit, tell us your story.
Yeah, sure. I mean, long story short, I'm a creative, I'm an entrepreneur, like grew up forever, like since I was really young, just was into music and art and design and programming and software and like all the different things and video production, all that kind of stuff. And, grew up doing a lot of that. But it was always mixed with like this like entrepreneurial bug, when you're an entrepreneur, like, you have it. Like there's just this thing where you want to grow, you want to build things, you want to like I can remember that from as young as like 10 years old, just wanting that. And it was when I was 13 years old when I started my first business as a freelancer doing graphic design. I was actually designing t-shirt designs for screamo bands on MySpace.
That's
So
amazing.
that was my first business, and it was cool. Like I would do these designs, and I would get paid like $20 over PayPal. Like PayPal was brand new back then. I don't think I realized like how revolutionary that was, that you could do work on the internet and get paid for it in internet money. But it was like crazy. And so, from there into graphic design, and then ultimately got into design, music production, started a recording studio, got into video production. I did a lot of branding, website design, helping companies like come up with new logos and brands and stuff like that. And I always had this sense for just like understanding the essence of a brand. And I think
Right.
this is what I get really excited about and what I really enjoy is like understanding what is the essence of a brand, whether that's a company or a person. What is the essence of a person? What makes them that? And then how can I design things? How can I write music? How can I shoot videos, edit videos, like create art or creative works that express that? And I
Right.
feel like that's always been like my forte is being able to understand it first of all, and then being able to express it, which to me, that's what branding is. It's taking the essence of something, a person or a company, and then creating the assets to express that to the world so that when you see a piece of content or you see a video or a website or a logo, you instantly get that feeling of, now I understand this brand. And so that was always the thing. And, I went through all those different phases of starting different types of companies and always been an entrepreneur, like never even had a real job. And that ultimately all led me to eventually in 2016, I started my first online course and I really started learning internet marketing. And it was like that was like the final piece that I needed to learn for it to all come together.
Right.
Because I
Right.
started learning how to sell info products online and sell courses and programs. We took that business and scaled it up to multiple seven figures, creating courses for filmmakers and for creators. And then it was about a year or two ago that I kind of took my combination of all of these skills that I developed over the last 20 years and just kind of combined it all into now working with people, primarily people, but CEOs, founders, companies, and helping them brand themselves, helping them build a personal brand, stay up to date on the trends and what's happening right now, what I call the age of the creator, and be a personal brand online, grow your audience, grow your following, build your brand, grow your business using it, and all that stuff. So that's where I'm at now.
Love it. I remember this was like 3 or 4 years ago. You were telling me when I was doing my last startup ping pong, you were saying, hey, worry less about building maybe you didn't say it in these many words, but you're like, worry less about building your startup brand and build your brand because people, especially in the early days, like they don't really care what your startup brand is. They want to buy from you. They want to trust that you're building something
Mm.
cool, that you hear them. And I feel like this was this was 4 years ago. And I feel like you were one of the first people I talked to about this idea that I think is now a much more obvious trend about how essentially the power of brands is maybe diminishing. Maybe it's still what it is, and there's just new brands. I don't know if it's really a trade off or more just like individual brands are becoming much more of a thing. You just see this all the time. You see
Yeah.
Mr. Beast. He is a brand. He can launch any product in any market, and he's going to sell a bajillion of them. There's a lot of examples like this with other celebrities and well-known people who are essentially have their brand. They use that brand to basically create brands. So how do you think about that trend? How do you think about like is that brands are losing power and it's more about people, or just that people are sort of becoming their own thing? What's the interrelationship between the two? Because Mr. Beast still has brands. He has Prime or whatever, but I'm just curious. How do you think about it?
Yeah, yeah. I would look at it from basically two sides. From the brand side, yes, I do believe that people are becoming less interested in company brands, and more interested in personal brands. And then the flip side of it is the advantages of building a personal brand, regardless of what you're doing. It doesn't, like, maybe you're a CEO, maybe you're a founder, maybe you're a sales guy, maybe you're like, it doesn't really matter. Building that personal brand only gives you more opportunities because, for example, with you, you were in ping pong, and I was talking about building a personal brand because the cool thing about a personal brand is that it transcends the company that you're currently in,
Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
work that you're currently
Yeah.
doing, or what your current project is. And I think a lot of times we kind of get stuck in thinking that our current project is like our lifelong thing, that there's going to be around forever.
Yeah.
Statistically speaking, that's not true, right? Statistically speaking, you won't be doing the same thing 10 years from now. So if you think about a personal brand, it's actually a long-term play. It's thinking like, well, my personal brand will exist from now until the end of my life. And if you really do it right, if you think about it, even beyond that, right? So it's like if I'm building the brand, I'm building the marketing machine around me, not the current project that I'm in. So that whatever project I pivot to, or whatever company I acquire or start up or sell or move into or pivot, whatever it is, I can
Yeah.
take that personal brand, I can take that following into those things. So if you think about like Elon Musk, for example, he
Yeah.
owns lots of different companies and has moved from, originally like PayPal back in the days, right? Into now it's, Tesla, and it's the Boring Company, it's a SpaceX, and it's Twitter or X. He's able to acquire Twitter. He could sell it. He can rebrand it. He can do whatever he wants, but the people that are following him are the people that are following him,
Yeah.
not his company. Elon Musk has a lot more followers on Twitter than Tesla does, or
Yeah.
SpaceX, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the brand kind of transcends the personal brand transcends the company brand, and it allows you to build something that's meaningful long term. So that's like on the advantages side of it. On the flip side of it is the is I do see that, the trend that we're seeing happening is that people are becoming less interested in business brands, right?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
may be because of social media and how it has made people so visible nowadays. It used to be
Right.
that you got all your information from a local newspaper.
Or
Now we have so much
an
visibility.
advertisement that was just sort
Yeah,
of,
an advertisement.
yeah.
Now we have so much visibility into people all over the world. And so anybody that can speak and has an internet connection and a camera can go on the internet and can start sharing their thoughts and their beliefs. And, there's an advantage to that as a personal brand, which you can build, but it also means that, people are becoming interested in the names and the faces behind even the big brands. Like
Mhm.
Apple is Steve Jobs or Tim Cook, and Tesla is Elon Musk, or
Yeah.
Amazon Jeff Bezos. People want to know who those people are. And I think when people find out that, like, oh, there's this company that I've been buying from for a long time, and I actually disagree with the founder of this company.
Yeah.
And nowadays you see people that will literally boycott those products or
Yeah.
won't buy from them anymore
Yeah.
because they don't resonate with the person behind the brand, which kind of presents a case for any founder or any CEO or any executive of a startup or a big company or whatever it is, no matter what you're building, to put this on the forefront that you should be building your personal brand, finding your people that resonate with you, and figuring out how to grow that audience, because ultimately that's who people want to buy from. They want to buy from someone that they can relate to.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So one of like in this world, which I totally agree with a lot of these trends. In this world, what is the purpose of a brand? Like, at what point should you think about building a brand for my company? Like for Grain, for example, it's like, I think what I'm hearing you're saying is your argument is I should focus the majority of the time of, you know, putting me out there as a thought leader, putting my personality out there. Um, but it needs to complement Grain to some degree. So how do you think about like the trade-offs there and where to spend your time and what stages?
Yeah, it's a good question. The way that I usually think about it is when people are saying, like, okay, I understand why I need to build a personal brand. So how do I get started with this? Typically, the first thing is like, okay, just understand that, like, your brand is you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A real authentic brand is just you, your unique combination of talents, interests, passions, abilities, morals, values, projects you're working on, like all that kind of stuff. So understand that the relationship between a personal brand and the company that you're running right now is that that company is one part of you. And
Right.
so it's not a separate thing. It's not like I'm building my personal brand over here and I'm building my business brand over here. It's more like, Jeff is like okay, Jeff is an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. He's done all these startups. He's done all these things. He's built all this stuff. He's really into politics and really, knowledgeable on that as well. He's a family man, a dad, and everything. And he's also the CEO of Grain,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
That's what people want to get interested in,
Mm.
right? It's actually all of those almost opposite strengths and passions and interests that are what make us interesting, right?
Right. Right.
Like if you met somebody who was like completely single modal, like only one, they only ever talked about one thing in one way, it would get boring. It gets monotonous. It's like we're not that interested in somebody like that. What makes people interesting is finding out that Jeff owns this company and he also has an ice bath in his garage, right? Like it's like, oh, he does those things, right? Elon Musk like loves rockets and electric cars, and
Yeah.
so that's what makes you fascinated. That's what makes you interesting. And so your business that you own or that you're running right now, that you're working in, is part of who you are right now. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of the relationship to it. So you have to kind of look at it that way, that like what I'm building in my personal brand is not a social media channel where I'm just going to promote the business that I'm in and just like constantly be promoting Grain, for example, like
Yeah.
go buy Grain, go get this, and all you ever do is talk about that because nobody can connect with that. It's
Yeah.
just you're just pitching, right? On the flip side, if you really build a brand around you and who you are, it allows people to really connect with you and get to know you, and then therefore become more interested in, oh, what was that one thing that you do right now? Let me go check it out.
Mm. It's so what's the that's really interesting. What's how do you see the interplay, the connection between sort of like thought leadership and personal brand building? And to illustrate that question a little bit is like you'll hear a lot of people say, "Hey, if you want to get attention on LinkedIn or pick your platform, you need to be consistent about a few topics and be an expert in those topics." I've heard people tell me that like, "Hey, when I post on, some kind of generic personal story," and I've seen it myself. It's like when I tell a story about my life or something, way more engagement than when I'm like talking about like more content heavy stuff. And
Hmm.
I've read or told a lot of people, I haven't done the analysis, maybe I need to do this analysis, that those posts, although they get a lot of engagement, they don't necessarily lead to leads or your sign up flow or whatever like business thing you're trying to drive. So I'm just curious, like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, the reason why that's happening right now is because my guess is the majority of people that are connected with you on LinkedIn know you personally
Yeah.
or have had some sort of interaction with you, or they're
Right.
within your realm, within your world.
Yep.
So that's how most people start out on social media. It's their family and friends. And so when they post that like, hey, I'm getting married or I'm having another baby, like people get really excited about that, right?
Yeah.
Their audience. But the
Yeah.
moment you start going broad, okay,
Yeah.
because you have to start thinking about this. Like if you're really trying to grow your brand, you're trying to break out of that circle.
Out of your
You're
immediate
trying to get
network.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're trying to get known to a cold audience. People who
Yeah.
don't know who you are and who want to discover you, they don't care, to put it bluntly, that you're
Yeah.
having a baby.
Yeah.
They don't care that you got promoted at work. They really don't. They're not celebrating you, right? Because they don't know you, right? Eventually they will, okay?
Yeah.
But they're not going to care about what's going on in your life until it's like that old quote, like they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
They don't care about what's going on in your life until you have sufficiently built a relationship with them, which comes through providing value to them. So that's
Right.
where the more like content focused, like you said,
Got
type of content comes in. You're going to start out doing that at first, and it's not going to get as many views, but you have to keep doing it because you're trying to break through the algorithm to where one of those posts then goes viral maybe and it gets a million views, and now you've got a bunch of people that see that and they go, wow, this guy's a really valuable thought leader. Like I gain insights and
Yeah.
perspective from this person. I really want to follow them and what they're doing. And if I go through their feed, I'm seeing tons of content that they've been posting that's
Mm.
all valuable to me, and occasional, family stuff or lifestyle, but mostly it's valuable. So then they actually want to follow you. Then that's when you get a flood of followers. And so that content is what's going to go out into the world and bring people in. That's what I call top
Yeah.
of funnel or the reach
Okay.
phase of the funnel,
Interesting. So you
is
actually want to think
reaching
about
people.
your own brand almost like a funnel.
It is a 100% a funnel. Yeah. So
Interesting.
you have the reach phase, you have the trust phase, and you have the conversion phase, right?
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
reach at the top is, at the very top of the funnel, actually, the way I like to look at it is you. You as the creator, as the person, you as a human are very widely relatable to people if for no other reason than the fact that you are also human, right? So you have two people that are human, you can relate to each other. It's just on
Right.
that level.
Yep.
Now with your brand, with your content, you're going from the top of the funnel, which is you, to the really like where the funnel really starts, which is your brand, which is the reach phase. Okay. So the reach phase is that is creating content that is like what you were talking about. It's those tips and tricks. It's the
Yeah.
stuff that's for some people it's entertaining, it's silly, it's stuff that goes viral, that gets shared because it's funny. But for a lot of like thought leaders or entrepreneurs, it's typically like tips and tricks. It's teaching stuff, it's sharing
Practical.
ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sharing stories, doing, research, studies, like that kind of stuff that people go, "Oh, it's really cool," and they want to share it with other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's for reaching. Now, if all you ever did was that, you would end up getting a big following. This happened to me, and I've seen it happen to a lot of entrepreneurs. You end up getting a ton of followers, and none of them ever buy from you. And so it's so cool because you feel famous for a day, but then you realize that like, wait, this isn't doing anything for me. And it's the reason why a lot of entrepreneurs go like, well, content doesn't work. I did this and I got 100,000 views, but then I didn't make any money from it. But well, you were doing it wrong.
Like, what's the mistake? What did you do that got you a ton of followers and didn't translate into any, business results?
Yeah. So initially I started out doing that like tips and tricks. My niche market was all filmmakers and creators, and I started creating like tips and tricks videos, like how to light your videos and how to make audio and like get the audio sounding good and stuff like that. And that was when I grew really fast. Within a few
Got
months, like crossed 100,000 followers and like millions of views and just like crazy growth. But the problem is I had a lot of followers, but they were and it did grow my business. Like I wouldn't say that it didn't.
Yeah.
Like I've been like now a decade in internet marketing, and so like I know how to move people into things and like email lists and products and courses and stuff like that. So it did help, but where I saw the biggest growth was when I actually pivoted and I was like, I'm not just going to talk about like tips and tricks for this one niche market that's going to blow up, but instead I'm going to do what we're talking about today, build a
Yeah.
personal brand. I'm going to start sharing like lots of different things and building that out. And what that means practically.
Okay, you're getting there. I was gonna say, is that mixing the content? So or like, are
Yes,
there
yes,
different
yeah.
channels for different content types, or how do you think about that?
Yes. So what that means practically is moving from the reach phase into the trust phase,
Yeah.
right? It's like not all of my content is just designed to get views. Some of it is. Some of it is made like I'm attempting to go viral with these videos. Like I want them to reach people. But viral, if it's not related to what you do and who you are, there's almost no point. Like I could make a video of me chugging a gallon of milk in an hour and then the inevitable aftermath of that, and it probably would go viral. But
Yeah.
like, is that going to bring business to me? No, not really. But I get a lot of views. I would feel famous. It'd be
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And so when it comes down to it, it's like finding content that is share worthy, which again is like your tips and tricks, your content. Like that's good. But then for the reach phase of the funnel, but then the trust phase is bringing in some more of that lifestyle, bringing in some more of like some of your deeper beliefs and thoughts and opinions on things, giving people like maybe deep dives on stuff. Like I have a newsletter where I take the principles that I talk about on social media, which are mostly surface level, and I go deep on a topic and I talk about that. That's
Mm.
where you're building a relationship with people. You're getting people that are coming in because they saw something they liked, like, oh, that was a funny video. And then they follow you, and now they're starting to get to know you. And
Mm.
that trust ultimately is a requirement for someone to buy from you, right? They
Right.
have to trust you. And so the more you build that trust with people, you take them through that cycle of reaching them and then building trust and reaching more people and building trust and reaching more people, building trust. And then like occasionally it's like, oh, hey, by the way, I have this business. By the way, I have this product. You can go check this thing out. And every time you talk about that thing, you're just scooping the cream off the top. The people who are ready, they've been there long enough, they've been incubated long enough, they know you, they trust you, and they go in and they buy.
Like, oh,
And
I
it
want to
just
see what this
becomes a
person's
cycle.
building. Like, I like this person. I want to see what they're building. And I want to support this
Yeah.
person. Like,
Yeah.
what goes from that sort of like, I feel like I have a relationship, or I feel like I trust this person too. I want to support their project.
Yeah, I think ultimately like it's more so you attracting the right people.
Okay.
Because if you're creating content again that's unrelated to what you do, you're bringing in lots of people, but they're not the type of person that is going to buy this. And typically, you know, you have to also always keep in mind that like I always call it MPW, most people won't. And it's the thing you have to keep in mind with any funnel is that at the top of the funnel is a lot bigger than the bottom of the funnel,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
That's why it's a funnel, which means that most people
Not a
won't,
box.
right?
Yeah.
Most people won't see you. Of the people that see you, most of them won't care. Of the ones that do care, most of them won't follow you. Of the ones that do follow you, most of them won't see your product. And ones that do see your product, most of them won't buy it. But your goal with all of it is to start big at the top, to make the top as big as possible, and then
Right.
do your best you can to funnel people down into that thing.
I love it. That's interesting. So you've talked a lot about these, but just to make the question more explicit, it's like as I'm thinking about personal brand building, what are some of the principles? Like one principle, for example, I see you talk about is this is like, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, is like being authentic. That seems to be a principle
Mhm.
that you espouse. Speaking about things that you're truly interested in, things that you feel like you truly have a unique voice to say. Curious about like what other principles like are top of mind for you as you're thinking about this.
I mean, the authenticity thing is really important, not just as a buzzword, like,
Yeah,
oh, be authentic,
yeah.
but like if you think about it, is as long as you're building an audience of people and you're not being authentic, you're actually attracting people who relate to somebody else. And so the moment you do become authentic or you do come out of your shell or whatever, you're going to find that they don't relate to you anymore because
Yeah,
they never did. They never knew who you were. And so people can't accept you, they can't relate to you if you're not showing yourself to them. And so I think authenticity is really important. And there's two sides of the scale with authenticity too. On one side, you see people who, for example, maybe are not experts at what they do or don't have much experience or haven't really done anything, not to be mean, but like there are people that are new entrepreneurs or they're new online or whatever, and they follow the influencers that they like and they start regurgitating what they're saying and start talking about it, and they
yeah.
talk a big game, right? And because they're used to that language, they hear it
Yeah.
that way, and so they just kind of like
It's,
repeat it.
it's the language they speak. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so they'll start creating that content, and the thing about that is that, like, I take well, so there's people out there that, and we've all heard of the people that like rent mansions or Lamborghinis or whatever to try and look successful, okay? You put on a facade. So that's inauthentic, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
not real. And
yeah,
eventually someday it's going to bite you in the butt.
yeah.
On the flip side of that, which is more common for the people that I'm typically talking to, is the flip side is that you have people like you or your peers or like other startup founders or CEOs or executives who are very successful, who have really good ideas and thought leadership, who have maybe written books or speaking on stages or are well known in their industry. But then if you go to their LinkedIn page or their Twitter account or their Instagram account, it's like they have 200 followers and no content. So you can be the most amazing expert in the world, but nobody knows it.
Yeah.
And that to me is also inauthentic, right?
Hmm. Interesting.
So, and I think it's a bigger problem because if you think about this like almost on like a moral level, the people who are the experts, who are the people who have good ideas and that are going to make a positive impact on the world should be out there sharing their ideas.
Right.
And
Right.
yet, for some reason, they're the ones that typically are the most afraid to do it because they
Yeah.
have the most to lose by doing it,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
people who don't have anything to show are out there speaking boldly and talking big, and they're out there stealing all of your followers and your audience and everything because they're not afraid of showing up because they have nothing to lose. Because
Right.
they just love being seen in the
Yeah.
spotlight, right? They're
Yeah.
not busy building anything. They don't have anything going on. And so they have all the time in the world to go out and talk
That,
and to create
that's I mean,
content
like
and to build
that.
an audience.
That to me is a huge piece of it. Is like I have so many people I know in my circles that are legitimately great people, super smart, have an amazing voice, but it's like they're running a business.
Yeah.
It's so hard for them to find the time or create the time. And so I think that's a big barrier for even just like small things. Like as I've started to do things like figuring out how to get you Riverside, I couldn't get my stupid continuity camera work. It's like it takes some like vulnerability and like and time that you like oftentimes don't need to. It's like I'm very comfortable running my business. I'm the CEO. I'm the top of the
Yeah.
power structure on a day-to-day basis in my organization. But then if I come on LinkedIn and some random person says that's stupid, like I'm vulnerable in a way that like I'm not on a day-to-day basis. So it's like to me,
Yeah,
time and
for sure.
vulnerability are big barriers for people who should be doing more of this.
Yeah, and that's who we work with typically,
Yeah,
whether it's like doing it for them or like helping them out or coaching or whatever. It's just like helping people who are like legit experts, and like you need to have a following. You need to because in for better or worse, in today's day and age, that's how people judge who you are.
right.
How many followers do you have? Is your content good? Like there are more people who know you by your online presence than who know you by your real life presence.
That's
And
crazy.
it's almost as if the online presence is really real life today, more so than real life is.
That's
It's kind of weird
crazy.
if you think about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So maybe I'll use with you here for some I'll steal some free advice. So you said this thing
Okay.
about authenticity, and what I heard is speak to your real experiences, speak to what makes you unique, speak to your true areas of expertise. If you're like me, you're a startup founder, a lot of the things that I write that maybe resonate the most, that feel the most authentic, are me when I share experiences about my startup journey, things that are tough experiences, mistakes I've made, et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of times, like that's not necessarily who I'm trying to reach. Like obviously startup founders are great customers. We love them. But really it's not who I'm super trying to target. It's like there are sort of like bottom end of our target market. We oftentimes want to more often than not, I want to talk to heads of sales, VPs of sales, go to market leaders. Whereas like in my experience, like I've never been, I've never been a go-to-market leader at like a big SaaS company or whatever, or a head of sales at a big SaaS company. I've done those roles at a startup. So that's one thing that I struggle with, this authenticity point a little bit, is like, how do I talk to these people in an authentic way without just regurgitating things that I'm hearing when I talk to sales leaders or whatever? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the funny thing about this, if I can go to like a kind of a deeper principle level,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that you will only ever attract people who are like you.
Hmm. Interesting.
Think about it. Like, you will only ever attract people who relate to you, who are similar to you, who have some similar passions, some similar interests. And
Or like some sort of like respect or aspiration, or like I want to be like that person, or yeah, some affinity.
yeah, in general, that's
Yeah.
what's going to happen. The majority of your audience is going to be people who kind of operate in the same mindset as you, in the same industry, in the same world, just because like that's what people are looking for. Well, not just on social media, but in life in general. Like we just want to fit in with people. We want to find our tribe.
Right.
So, so the key, and this is not the easy answer, but the key to attracting a different type of person is changing who you are, which doesn't happen quickly, right?
No. Oh yeah.
And it's not actually necessary because, you know, from a business standpoint, you know, we think about like this is the target avatar, and that's totally fine. Your business should have a target avatar. It should have a very specific your product should be narrow. It's I help this person achieve this result, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
business. That's the very bottom point of the funnel
Okay.
is the
Yeah.
business, right?
Yeah.
But at the top, you know how I said like the creator is at the top? You're widely relatable to a lot of people.
Hmm.
Well, anybody on earth,
Yeah.
technically,
Yeah.
because you're
Yeah.
human.
We're all humans.
And so you have to think about it bigger than that. And it's like those people are going to be in your crowd as well because you're in that world of sales and you're talking about sales and you're talking about business and entrepreneurship. So those people are going to find you. But like
Right.
they're not going to be your entire audience. And
Mhm.
so it's why like for a personal brand to really be successful, you have to think about it long term. You have to think about it bigger than what you're doing right now. And you have to think about it being built around you and your values and your passions. And when
Right.
you do that, and the reason why you need to do that is not just for authenticity's sake, but also for it to actually work on social media, because especially in 2024 and beyond, that's how social media works. It used to be you would build your following and those people would see your posts. It's not that anymore, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
people that have built huge followings of millions of followers, and then now the algorithms have shifted. They don't show posts to your
Yeah.
followers anymore, and
Yeah.
they were riding on creating mediocre content, but they would get a ton of views because they had a big following. Now every piece of content is being pitted against every other piece of content in the world, and so
It's
it doesn't
wild.
matter who's following you. Somebody with 0 followers can get a million views. Somebody with a million followers can get 200 views. It just doesn't matter anymore. And so it's in order for content to work on social media nowadays, and by the way, this is especially with YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter,
Right.
you know,
Right.
probably becoming more so this way with LinkedIn as well. In order for it to work, it has to be broad. It's got to
Mhm.
be broadly appealing because your goal for reach is to get people sharing. And who's going to share something that doesn't appeal to a lot of people, right?
Right. Right.
So going broad with your brand is not just you know, an authentic thing, but it's also a strategic thing because that's what allows the content to work. It allows it to get shared because there's a large audience of people for that piece of content versus something that's really specific and narrow, and there's not a large audience. So if
Yeah.
you make a video like that, the algorithm puts it out there and then it realizes that like only this tiny group of people like it. Therefore, we're not going to show this to anybody because nobody likes it.
Interesting. I mean, that's fascinating. That's super interesting stuff. So, couple questions here as we kind of wrap up on that thought, and then I want to change courses. Like authenticity, going big. I think those are principles that I'm hearing. I'm hearing you talking about like authenticity is a big principle for you. Thinking bigger than what
Broad.
you're currently
Yeah.
working on, and future is what you're currently working on. Any other kind of like wrap up principles?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm
I mean,
sure there are some, but
yeah, no, that's all good. That's awesome. I find it, yeah, I think this is, I think it's really, I mean, I actually, as you were talking, I had another question, but like, then you said something that's like, oh man, I got to think about how I'm approaching this differently. So that's really good stuff. Are there any other trends you're seeing that are like, because I think you were really early spotting this like people as brand trend. I think you're also really early on video. I remember you told me this might even be like 2017. You're like, do more video. So you were really early on the video trend. And now I think that, now I think everyone knows that. I mean, I was at HubSpot inbound, in a room with 20, 30,000 marketers or whatever. And they're like, do video. Video is what the
yeah.
algorithms like and what the algorithms are promoting. So I consider you someone who's like pretty early in on some of these trends. What are there anything you're seeing that sort of you feel is like not a super well appreciated trend, but you think will continue to become something?
I would not call this an unappreciated trend, but AI is definitely,
Yeah. Yeah.
infiltrating every industry, I would say.
Yeah.
And certainly this industry, business, personal branding, like everything. So that's something that, everybody's got to be watching. I saw something really interesting the other day, and it was, I can't remember who it was, but posted something about how there's basically two camps in AI. And one is a group of people who think that they're,
That's balloons.
sorry, I still can't figure out how to turn those things off.
Yeah. Like some product manager somewhere thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
It's like randomly
Um,
balloons.
so there's two camps. The one camp is people who think they're going to be replaced by AI, and
Yeah.
then the other camp is people who think they're going to be augmented by AI. And I think that actually kind of creates like a really nice divide between people. Like there's people that are scared of AI that are typically the ones who feel like they're going to get replaced, and there's
Mhm.
people who are excited about AI, and they're typically the ones who think that they're going to get augmented by it. And so there's two ways of looking at it. It's is it going to make us do less, and we're going to sit around like in Wall-E, and we're just going to be on floating chairs on a spaceship and like not and just getting fat,
Yeah.
or is it going to make humans so much more powerful and give us so much more potential, allow us to do so much more?
Yeah.
And I kind of fall typically into that camp because I believe in humans and our desire to grow and to do more. And certainly that's going to apply to entrepreneurship and personal branding and everything online. I personally, I've been using ChatGPT a lot more lately to write content or come up with ideas, or at least a first draft, or like write scripts. Or I was writing an ad for somebody
Oh,
recently
interesting.
and used ChatGPT to like help me come up with like jokes and one-liners to throw into it and everything. And it was such a cool collaborative process with this like assistant that just knows everything in the world. And the fact that I was able to spit out an ad, which we'll see how it performs, but I think it's amazing,
Yeah.
in like 2 hours, was like amazing. People would normally spend like a 2 or 3 day creative retreat trying to come up with something like that, and I did it in 2 hours
Right.
and came up with that. And so I think it's really interesting what AI is going to allow. But the thing to keep in mind with AI, especially, or at least like in its current iteration, who knows if this will change? We don't know. But in its current iteration, AI still requires a creator. It still requires a visionary. It still requires a dreamer to be able to create something, or at least to be able to create something good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because there still is power in the prompting of the AI. There still is the person. There's the human behind the AI work, or like who's instructing the robot to do
Yeah.
the work. Just like the CEO of a company, they don't do all the work, but their heart is in the product because
Yeah.
they have the vision over what everybody's doing. It's just that we can work so much faster now. So that's kind of the way that I look at it.
Cool. I dig it. I love it. Well, anything else? Anything else on this topic? Like, is would be helpful to chat about before we wrap up? Just,
We could talk for like 3 days,
I
but
know. I know. There's a lot. There's a lot more. I think the thing that I've got one more question is like, it's kind of bringing us back, but you were talking about how like you want to have. Essentially, what I'm hearing you saying is like in when you're posting on these big social media platforms, broader content tends to perform better, because ultimately it's like you're competing against an algorithm. It's not. It used to be the case where like the feeds would be based on what you follow. That's becoming less and less the case. It's more the algorithm is serving up what they think is more likely for you to engage with. So really niche content that no one engage with, it sort of sends a signal to the algorithm, not going to engage. So what I'm hearing is like when you're doing sort of broad-based content on various social media platforms, maybe LinkedIn, it's like you want to think broader, you get that engagement. And that's generally, does that in your mind map one to one with this idea of awareness? Is that what you call it, like awareness, or your top of funnel step?
The reach, yeah,
Reach, yeah, reach, yep. In my funnel framework, it's like awareness, but it's the same thing.
yeah, yeah, same thing, yeah.
And then, okay, so then so you're getting awareness, you're getting broad-based awareness, and then what type of stuff is moving? If I'm thinking about my sort of personal brand content creation, what stuff is moving from awareness and reach to middle of funnel? What did you call your middle of funnel?
Yeah, trust.
Trust. Okay. Trust. What type of thing? Like you mentioned, having them sign up for a newsletter, but I'm curious, like, just to hear you say more about that.
Yeah, sure. So deeper dive information. Okay.
Hmm.
Social media is not really made for like dissertations on topics. People are typically
Yeah.
looking for a quick hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, in the reach phase, you're going to do more of that. In the trust phase, you can do deeper dives. It's like the type of content that's going to relate to the people who already follow you, not new people probably.
Right.
So deeper dives, which is like what my newsletter is, or I might create a piece of content that just goes deeper on something. Lifestyle type content is really good at building trust with people because they get to see you
Yeah.
behind the scenes, documenting your journey and what's going on. Like if you're talking about like, hey, this is day 3 of growing this new startup, and XYZ, I had a hard day today because of this. Like, there's not
Yeah.
a lot of people out there who don't know who you are who are going to be interested in that. But the people who do are like zoned in. They want to know like what's happening, what's going on, and they get to know you through that, and they get to see your personality and your struggles and stuff like that. That type of content, like I said, just educational content in general. What else would be like trust? I mean, that's a lot of it.
What types of mediums work well for that sort of middle trust funnel? Is it like you mentioned newsletters, blogs, I'm guessing maybe podcasts, like people subscribe to your podcast.
Yeah,
What other medium?
podcasts, long form video works really well, but you can also do that with short form video or with tweets. Like it's more the content more so than the medium.
Okay, interesting.
So whatever platform you're on, like you want to be hitting all 3 phases of the funnel. You want the reach stuff, you want the trust stuff, you want the
Even
promotion.
in the same medium.
Yeah, yeah, for
So I'm
sure.
going to say like, okay, on my LinkedIn feed, I'm going to have some specific posts that I know are going to be broad, top of funnel posts, and then I'm going to have other types
Hmm.
of posts that I know are kind of more middle funnel, and then I'll have others that are all in the same feed, and they might take different modalities. Is that a way to think about it?
Yep. It's occasionally or most of the time, especially when you're starting out, you're leaning heavily towards top of funnel. Like you're
Okay.
just trying to get awareness, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so most of your stuff is like viral with like a really good hook that's really interesting, something that's going to grab people's attention or like an interesting image or whatever, and then teaches a really
Yeah.
nice story and then
Yeah.
makes a good point that they haven't heard before. That kind of stuff is like a majority of your content. But then it's like occasionally, take a picture of your family trip from last week and you go like this is what I do is like because once I realized that all of my social media content is designed to provide value to the world and it's not designed to stroke my own ego, then it was like how do I post what if I want to post a picture of my kids or what if I want to post a picture of my trip or this thing that I did recently? How
Yeah.
do I do that? Oh, the way that I do it is by turning it into a lesson, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, because now it's like, I'm not just posting that because I want everyone to see how awesome I am. I'm
Right.
posting it because I have an audience who wants value from me. My job is to create value for them. And so, if it's, I went on this trip, it's telling them something that I learned on that trip or
Right.
that this happened. Like, I went camping with my kids recently and I just realized like how important family values are and like why this
Yeah.
affects me as an entrepreneur. And I'm teaching that through the
Right.
content. That's more a middle of funnel, right? I'm keeping it educational, I'm keeping it valuable, but it's more kind of closely related to me.
People who kind of know who you are and are interested
People
in.
know who I am, yeah. And so you're kind of building trust through there. And then of course the bottom of the funnel is just occasionally you have products that come out or occasionally you're talking about grain or you're like, hey, we just did this cool thing at grain.
check it out.
We just had this party, or we have this new product, this new feature just came out. Check it out. If you haven't yet, go and look at it. Like, that's not going to go viral,
Yeah,
but you've been collecting people all this time. And so that when you do that, there are people who are like, oh, that's interesting. I should go check this thing out.
amazing. That's great insights. Eric, this has been so fun. Thanks so much for the
Yeah.
time. And I've really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me on. This is
Yeah,
fun.
let's do it again sometime, man. Have a good weekend.
Okay. All right. We'll see you later.